All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook folks in here in the metaverse, and we're going to be doing okay. Got the wheels spinning. Still spinning 1 and 2. All right. It is Monday morning, June 2nd. I'm back. Eric, it's good to see you. Thanks for holding down the fort last week while I was in stormy southeast United States out in Charleston, South Carolina. How are you doing? How have things been? Hopefully you didn't miss me too much. I'm glad to see that things haven't burnt down here or the commenters aren't revolting against us. So you guys must have at least, done okay for yourself. No, I have never in doubt. Appreciate you guys keeping things going here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, it was a fun week. I filled in for you on Tuesday, and then Carl filled it on for Lance on Friday. So it was fun to sit there and talk with Carl for those 2 days. And then not doing the morning shows definitely threw off my week a little bit, but it was nice to be able to get some extra rest instead of getting up super early for me and, getting in here and doing the show. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be talking about football, even though it is the dead time of year that we're going to be, you know, struggling to figure out what stuff to talk about, but it's always still fun to sit here, and I'm glad you're back. Glad you had a nice little trip and everything and made it there safe and made it back home safe.
Yeah, 6 to 8 hours of travel with a 16-month-old. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best time in the world. And the night before we flew back from Charleston to Seattle, he was up from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. I don't know. My Natalie is sick now. She's always sick. So he must have had something, probably. But man, flying from Charleston to Chicago and then Chicago to Seattle after getting 90 minutes of sleep the year before and having to deal with a 16-month-old on the plane. That was a long trip, so not the most restful time last week, but we're here, we're back, we're feeling good. Happy belated Memorial Day to everyone in the chat. If you have family members who served and have passed, obviously remembrance and all that. Did want to show out for them as well, even though we weren't here last week. Appreciate everybody, and let's say hello to everybody in the chat coming in here. We got David Youngkin in the house. Says morning, everyone. Wife yelling at me for not having my oxygen tank on me while I mow. Well, be careful with that. You don't want to nick anything, or are you wearing it like a scuba diver on your back there? But be safe, David, and yeah, listen to your wife. Women live longer than men for good reason. So if there's something like that, it's more yes, dear, smile and nod, and hope you're doing well. Good to see that you're getting outside a little bit as well. I haven't owned. I'm millennial. I haven't and living in an expensive market. I haven't owned a house, but I did do some mowing. Obviously, my dad and I worked at a boathouse one summer and had to mow their lot as well, which was on the water. Obviously, it's a boathouse. Mowing goose poop. It brings back haunting memories. But other than that, good activity. Good to get outside. Do you wear the classic white New Balance as well, or do those just get totally destroyed? I'm curious what the look is there, David, with the oxygen tank. We got Micah says, "I'm yelling at you too, David." Yeah, good. Stay healthy. And yeah, that sounds. But you need to Jimmy yourself a backpack for that. I think I don't know how heavy it is, but I just carried my 30-pound 1.5-year-old up 8 miles and 3,500 feet of elevation for a hike yesterday. So you can do it. I believe in you, David. Gatorade Gaming. Good morning, Nick and Eric. What's good, Broncos country? Yeah, we're like Eric said, we're entering the slow time of year. So if you guys have any thoughts on episodes or anything as well, hit us up on Twitter. We'll have a chance to talk a lot of things, and we can have a chance to stretch our legs. A lot of big picture stuff. We can really get into the nitty gritty with some of the positions or individual players as well. But if there's something you're dying for us to talk about, hit us up, and we'll definitely have a chance to get into it. Michael Ronquillo in the house says, good morning, Nick and Eric on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you so much, Michael, for the stars. Again, talking about it being the slow period, that makes everything like this matter and impact us so much more. It helps with the algorithm, obviously helps us individually, but really, just keeping the ball rolling. So really, really shout out to Michael Ronquillo coming in and helping us out here as we kick off June. Proud Zennial 81 coming in says good morning from Gilbert, Arizona. Also down there, I don't know where Gilbert is in comparison to Tucson, but down there in the desert area. And he also says hit the like button. Also, thank you so much. Gatorade Gaming says go Cubs. Ugh, God, I don't have to wash my mouth out. Appreciate you. And Dave Glassman in the house with the hearts and everything as well. So good to see everybody in here. Also got the wow react coming from Chase Wellner. Thank you so much, Chase. If you guys are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, click the thumbs up, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe. If not, what are you doing here? Right? That helps us a lot. So that's really appreciated. But Eric, before we get moving too far here, OTAs last week. We had the Broncos back in Denver running through things. JFM wasn't there. Patrick Surtain wasn't there, I heard as well. I'm kind of nervous about that one, whatever that means. Have you heard anything about the absences from the Broncos at OTAs, which is not mandatory, but it's still encouraged for people to be there?
Yeah, John Franklin Myers, it was known he wasn't going to be there for the voluntary workouts. It's actually been known since, I think, right before the draft or right after the draft. He's working out with his own pass rush coach in Dallas, I think is where he's located. And last year, his pass rush coach actually came and joined and helped with the Broncos pass rushers during training camp. And I believe the expectation is he's going to do that again this year. He might be here for this week's camp, and I think that's the expectation. He's supposed that John Franklin is supposed to be there for that. But voluntary. It's voluntary. Not surprised he didn't miss it when he's working with his own guy when it was known. Patrick Surtain, again, voluntary. So even though it's encouraged, it's still voluntary. So a lot of these guys, not surprised they did. It's more, to me, it's more noteworthy when they're there and not participating because of injury. Which there was only a couple guys that were a little caught me off guard with that, but I can't remember who. I'd have to find the
Zach Allen. Zach Allen was there, but didn't participate in everything. I don't know if that was contract related. I think he was. I heard that he was involved in the blocked kick unit stuff. Excuse me, but was held out of some stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the list right now to get the whole thing of who was there and who didn't participate and all that, but I'm not able to find it. I know Dre Greenlaw, he was there. I believe he was there, but not participating because he's dealing with an injury. Singleton, same thing. Most of the guys were there, but there was just one. It might have been Allen, but I don't think it was. There was one guy that I know that was there that caught me off guard because he wasn't participating due to injury, but I just can't remember who it was.
Yeah, well, if anybody in the chat knows who it is, let us know. We got Zeniel saying we should do an episode with drafting the greatest Broncos of all time at each position. That might be a fun format. We'll have to chew on that one as well. I will say, I don't know my Broncos before the 98 season as well. And I really didn't become super duper obsessive with Broncos football probably until 2005, like just sitting there playing Madden, like memorizing the roster and where they went to school just over and over again. I think probably about that season that they ended up going to the AFC Championship game against the Steelers. That was really when it went from like, I'm a big fan of the Broncos to like, I'm obsessed with the Broncos. So a little bit more recent stuff there, but still would be fun to do. And the older folks in here have been fans since the 80s would probably have a little bit better idea than us. We got Albert Knoppers says, go Broncos, go Albert. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. We also got Mike Thompson in the house. Good to see you. Also, it's time to watch some film, brother. If you have film of 80s Broncos games that aren't just, grainy highlights, then let me know. Although, with what time? I know it's the dead season, but not elsewhere. I will be doing a move sometime this summer, so that'll be a little bit harder as well. But getting into it, other OTA stuff, it did sound like the Broncos rookies stood out pretty well. And I heard from some multiple people, Pat Bryant really does look like he belongs. Now it's OTAs. How much does that matter? The drills are set up for the wide receivers to win. But the Broncos have pretty good depth in the secondary. There's good talent, even though they aren't set up to win in the secondary in those type of drills. But sounds like he belongs. Now we won't really know. And it keeps ramping up and it matters more and more the closer we get to the regular season. But happy to hear that he at least is standing out in a positive way. And I think the Broncos, he was the pick I was most skeptical about. One of the highest drafted compared to the consensus board players in the last 5 years, him and Isaac T-Slaw with the Lions. But does sound like early returns sound positive.
Yeah, he was one of the guys I talked about this on Friday night where reaching out and talking to some people, because there hasn't been a whole lot out there on the Twitter sphere or anything like that, where one of the comments that I got was that he is looking better than Devon Vele and Troy Franklin are this year, that he's looking farther along than they were last year and this year. And that's might be a bit surprising because Devon Vele, he's been looking pretty good from what I understand as well. But Pat Bryant's just looking better, farther along, which when you look at his the experience that he has, not overly surprising because Troy Franklin didn't quite have that same amount of experience. Devon Vele, same thing. So not overly surprising there, but it is nice that he's looking good. Jade Barron reached out and talked to some people about that. He's looking really good. He's picking up things quickly. The most surprising one was Caleb Lohner, who one of the guys that I talked to said that everyone is really surprised with how quickly he's picking things up. Not necessarily showing it out on the field. He's had a couple good plays, but he's just picking up the playbook. He's picking up the coaching. He's picking up everything extremely quickly, which is very reassuring for the Broncos when, that was a pick that a lot of people were skeptical on, even though it was the 7th round pick, the last pick that they made for a guy with 57 snaps of college football. So it's great to hear that he's picking things up as quickly as it is. But as you said, can he continue going forward? Can he turn that into a good preseason? Things like that, that'll help him make the roster or not. But it's a good start for him at least.
Yeah, and some other guys have heard positive flashes about the Broncos too. Defensive line that they added, Savion Jones and Q Robinson, have been flashing, and you'd expect them to flash. High recruits, a lot of physical talent, and still pretty raw in the technical aspect of playing the defensive front. And the one thing I'll always add when you're talking about defensive linemen flashing in anything like this, or even like preseason games, the level of quality competition going from the starting offensive line to the second or third string offensive line is as big of a gap as you get at any positional group in football, outside maybe quarterback. So while they may be beating up, the Broncos backups on the offensive line, I don't know how much that is going to be a direct translation to the league right now. It's good to hear. It's better to hear than not. But until you see them against the very few people walking the earth that are starting caliber and quality offensive linemen, it's hard to say for those guys. But the requisite tools, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, what's your path to see those reps against starters in practice or in preseason? By dominating the guys that you're playing against, by beating those guys. That gets you more reps in practice. That gives you a better chance to show what you can do against the starting lineup. So it's good that they're doing really well against who they're facing, because again, that's just the first step of it. And then, of course, RJ Harvey, he got singled out by Bo Nix afterwards with how well he's doing. Been a lot of praise for him with the work that he's been doing as a receiver throughout the OTA so far, which is very encouraging when we're skeptical on his receiving ability. But the Broncos have always been more, what's the right word here? More, not necessarily enthused, but more, had more belief in his receiving ability based off of what they did at the what he did at the combine, the pro day, and all that, and what they saw on tape. They really liked his upside there. So it's good that he's showing that early on in OTAs as well. So every single rookie really has been praised about. Jeremy Crawshaw been praised for how well he's punting the ball. Even some of the undrafted free agents, Xavier Truss, Clay Webb, even though offensive line is one of those positions that trench play in general in OTAs is very difficult to get a judge on because of the limitations that are on them with contact and stuff. But both of them have had some positive comments. And then the North Carolina Central undrafted rookie, Davis, I think is his name.
Joaquin
Joaquin Davis or something like that. He's been getting a lot of praise for it as well, with his length and everything, and how well he's doing tracking the ball when he's attacking deep, and just his route running in general. So some undrafted rookies also getting some pleasant praise over OTA so far.
And a few more comments I want to get into from OTAs. We got David Schlosser Jr. coming in, says, good morning, gents. Everyone hit the like button. Shai Vargas asks, how will the Broncos do this year? We did a predictive episode 2 weeks ago. I think we had the Broncos winning 11 games in that.
I think you had 11. I had 13.
You had 13? Okay. Wow. 13-4. That's a Super Bowl season there, Eric, at least in the conversation. So, yeah, I think they're going to be good, but a lot of it's going to come down to the step Bo Nix takes and the consistency of the defense, and obviously injury front. Actually, I was messing with some of the DVOA stats, Eric. Do you know the statistic variance from DVOA? It's just how stable they are in a week-to-week performance. The Broncos were the most volatile defense in all of football last season. So they were the least, like week by week, they could either be the best unit or they could be absolutely putrid. And we kind of saw that last season. Some of the games, they were dog water against good defense, good offenses. The Bills, Ravens, Cleveland game, a lot of turnovers in that Cleveland game, but they were volatile. I hate to say it, but I felt the defense was a little bit of front runners last season, where if there was somebody that they were better than them, they absolutely crushed them. But if it was close, they kind of looked mediocre relatively quickly. So we'll see if they can figure that out. I mean, it was kind of in the Broncos scores last season as well in the 1-score games. They were not very good in those, and they just beat up everyone else. So the point differential and the 1-score games would indicate Broncos left some meat on the bone and could have a higher floor this season than expected. Troy Boer coming in $9.99 says, do you think Sean Payton's comment about we like short running backs but not small running backs means McLaughlin is odd man out? So excited for the secondary they have this year. Have a great show. McLaughlin could be the odd man out. I think a lot of it's going to come down to injury front as well. And the only guy that I think is truly safe is probably RJ Harvey. I think it'd be pretty shocking at this point, given what they did in the draft, if Estime's gone as well. But after that, it's open competition. Could be Bidet, could be Watson, could be somebody else they bring in still, or it could be McLaughlin. But with the sides are lacking and bringing in Harvey, I do think that McLaughlin is potentially an odd man out, but he's gonna have a chance to earn it regardless.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that chance when you're talking about the third running back that they're the odd man out. But from what I've gathered, it doesn't sound like they really want to move on from McLaughlin. They really like him for a specific role, and I've talked about it on here multiple times. You know, that you have your three types of backs. You have your explosive back, your power back, and your slasher back for Sean Payton. And McLaughlin is that slasher back. Tyler Bidet, if anybody's going to take the spot from McLaughlin, it's either Tyler Bidet or somebody they bring in later. Although it sounds like if they bring somebody in later, it's going to be because Audric Estime doesn't step up and they're looking for more of that short yardage power back. But he's been looking really good. McLaughlin, I guess, has been looking really good. He seems to be a little bit quicker with his decision making and just quicker on his feet and lighter on his feet. So it's OTAs again, but he's putting a good start to it. And it seems that there is a clear drop off from him to Tyler Bidet, that Tyler Bidet is struggling to bounce back from that back injury a little bit. And so there's always that possibility. But right now, I think there's a very clear 1, 2, 3 for the Broncos at running back, but doesn't mean things can't change.
And that leads us to the next comment I wanted to get into here. Thank you, Troy, so much for the super chat. They go double this time of year, so really do appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. Estime, Payton, some positive comments with Estime, and that's somebody who in OTAs, it's going to be hard to really get a feel for because the physicality, and he even talked about him being a multi-carry player to really get going with the size and everything, and just the style he plays with. You're not going to really feel that in OTAs. It's going to be hard to feel that until you're actually in regular season games. So hard to evaluate that kind of player. The one aspect I will say is pass protection, right? If you're going to be that early down guy with a lot of carries, we can find out about your competency and your intelligence and the ability to work within the scheme of the blocking scheme. But other than that, it's going to be hard to know until we know, right? Until the regular season is going. But positive comments, doubling down from Sean Payton on that front. I feel like, as you mentioned, because of all of that, unless he looks, putrid or knock on wood, something injury related happens, you probably are rolling with him and Harvey 1, 2 in that front. How the carries distribute, we'll see. But he's somebody that with Payton's comments, I'm, stock up for him.
Yeah. And he's one that he looks like he has a better build this year. Seeing some clips of the running backs, he looks a little bit leaner compared to last year. And I went and had to do some digging to find some video from last year's OTAs and rookie minicamp. He definitely looks lighter. He definitely looks leaner, and he just looks a little bit quicker, which were all things that were a little bit problematic for Estime last year. He looked a little bit slow on his feet at times during the regular season. So those are all steps in the right direction for him. But as you said, it's going to come down to what he can do. That not all of it is things that he can show during OTAs or practice. Even when they put the pads on during training camp, it's going to be that preseason action. And, even in pass protection, there's some stuff he can do, but still until the pads come on, until he gets into a game setting, it's still limited what you can get out of pass protection. But it's one of those things, as talking about with McLaughlin, talking about with Bryant, talking about with all these guys, it's a good starting point. It's what you build off from there. That's always the case with all of these guys. But Estime is one that, as you said, with Sean Payton's comments, with seeing his build, the stock is definitely up with Estime.
Yeah. And somebody I think stock down with coming out of OTAs, Drew Sanders. They talked about, somebody specifically asked about a Drew Sanders question, and he's like, yeah, he's the linebacker this year. Good. My edge room is kind of skinny, or not skinny, robust right now. There's a lot of options there. Maybe not your Von Miller Hall of Fame path kind of guy. It'd be nice to have that S tier pass rusher, but you got plenty of options there, which could make things interesting next offseason. But having him move there and talk about him being a pressure player circles back to the post day 2 press conference from the 2023 draft where they talk about him that way. But from what I've gathered and I've heard it both behind the scenes, but then also credit to Zach Stevens at DNVR. He said it out loud. So that makes me confident in saying this and doubling down. I feel more confident when somebody else says it with a little bit of authority, but he is far from a guarantee to make the roster. So they brought in a couple undrafted free agents at linebacker. I don't think they're quite pleased with him. Now he does have special teams ability, he does have blitzing ability, but right now sounds like he's squarely behind Justin Strnad as that third guy, and those undrafted free agents are coming for his spot as well. So just because they drafted him, 75 overall or something, he might be the odd man out. But still has 2 years of the contract as well. Yeah. But still, this far in, we haven't seen much. That's not all his fault with the Achilles last season, but hasn't been good enough. And it sounds like he's very much in a sink or swim situation right now with the depth of the linebacker room.
Yeah, the positive stuff that he brings to special teams and that, blitzing linebacker, that's all stuff Q Robinson brings. Like, that's why we've talked about before that you can see Q Robinson not just lining up on the edge, but in certain situations you can see him lining up as a linebacker and as an A-gap mugger, A-gap blitzer. Mm-hmm. And because I don't think Drew Sanders makes this roster, I think he's done in Denver, and it's time for both sides to move on. Just because there's a lot of stuff there that, not to get into, still going on being said behind the scenes with Drew Sanders that is making it very questionable about his talents and abilities on the field. And so I just think that Denver's made the preparations to move on from him because he was a Payton draft pick, a guy that they, took in his first draft. They're not ready to just cut ties completely just yet, but they're going to give him training camp and preseason to see what he can do and see if he can still put the pieces together and surprise everybody, but it doesn't sound like they're banking on that.
Yeah. Rough situation. That a good point about Q Robinson as well, even though he's probably more edge when it comes to the
he is. It's just something he can do. He can do.
Yeah. That. With the special teams, with the ability to be inserted in different spots of the front seven as a rusher. Yeah, it's rough. Gatorade Gaming, good comment here. Strnad's the longest tenured Bronco now. That's crazy. Good for him. Good fourth linebacker. Don't want to see him out there on defense, but happy to have him in the locker room. Sounds like he's a great guy as well. So, I mean, you don't want to support, horrific people out there, but that's nice. That's a nice bonus to have if you have that on your team. Morning, guys. It's hard to imagine the team taking a step back if we are fortunate with our health. That's the big key, right? The Broncos' health is going to be the biggest part. They haven't really inserted much premium investment in the offensive line. So the offensive line is the one that scares me probably the most right now, just because with other spots, wide receiver, defensive line, you kind of see those guys rotate in meaningful reps. Offensive line, not necessarily the case. I know we had an okay output from Palczewski. I think people overrated his run blocking at right tackle when he was out there last season compared to what McGlinchey brought, but he, held his own. He lost slowly in pass protection. I think he fits more at guard, but does he bring a power profile? I prefer him as a backup at the end of the day. But the offensive line scares me a bit. And I talked about it. I don't know how long you've been here, Jeremy, but the Broncos defense last year was the most volatile week to week. I expect them to have some regression as far as the pass rush totals. Do I expect them to have 10 more sacks, whatever it was, than anybody else in the league last season, and once again break their franchise sack total record? No, I think that it's a pretty safe bet to think they will lose 10 to 15 there, even if the defensive line is still as good. But I think you raised the floor of the defense as a whole with the pieces that you brought in. And that brings us to our conversation here today with the last 10, 15 more minutes. PFF lists Broncos' new highest paid free agent this cycle in safety Talanoa Hufanga to be the Broncos bounce back player this season. Obviously, when Talanoa Hufanga had his best seasons with the 49ers, he was incredible all around the football. A lot of tackles for loss. I mean, he's hard to miss out there when he plays. He's a very high energy player. You kind of get some discount Troy Polamalu vibes from him sometimes with the hair and just the energy that he plays with. But they list him as the big comeback player, and I think that's a good one. I will say I have a few other candidates here. It depends on how broad we're accepting the comeback player or the bounce back candidate for the Broncos. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think I would make a bet for him over Singleton, and just because I don't think Singleton's got the same ceiling, as well as Greenlaw, because I think Greenlaw, with the injury stuff, he's a little bit more of a risk to me than Hufanga.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Broncos, and this kind of goes with Jeremy's comment about the fortune with our health, that's one thing that we're going to really find out this year. Denver's betting on their training and medical staff, and because they're taking a risk on all three of their big free agent signings are guys with serious medical issues. So any one of them could be the bounce back candidate. You have Dre Greenlaw coming off that Achilles that in the Super Bowl, not this last one, but the one before, that caused him to miss all but like 50 some odd snaps or something like that last year. Talanoa Hufanga, who played like 300 or so snaps last year, 400 last year because he was missing time with injury. And then you have Evan Ingram, who missed 8 games because of injury. First 4 with a hamstring issue, and then he missed the last 4 with the torn labrum. So all of them are guys that they're definitely showing they believe in their training and medical staff, but all have those risks. But of them, I think Hufanga has the best chance to have the biggest impact because he's going to be out there for 1,000+ snaps. He's going to be out there for dang near every single snap as long as he's able to stay healthy. Whereas Evan Ingram is probably going to be about 50 to 75%, and Dre Greenlaw is probably going to be about 75 to 85% based off of, as long as they're able to stay healthy. So Hufanga will have the most steps to make the impact, and his impact, I think, is going to be far more recognizable on the field because of what he's bringing to the defense. He can be used as that linebacker. He can be used in too high. He just brings a versatile enough skill set. So not surprised that they went with Hufanga with PFF right now. Just because of that aspect of it, and pairing him in that secondary when you have the reigning defensive player of the year and Brandon Jones, who everybody's really buying into as a single high type safety. The pieces are there for Hufanga to step in and just be that missing piece in the secondary that PJ Locke wasn't, that can help him be that bounce back player.
Yeah, apologize. Hopefully I'm muting myself. I have a little bit of a cough here. But good to see you, Jeremy. He also says Palczewski, Parrott, Webb, and Forsyth are decent offensive line depth. And is there any team with offensive line depth? I don't think so. There are some teams that have invested in the unit more. You have the Broncos with 2 7th-round picks in 3 seasons, which is not really feeding the unit, so to speak. But Webb's a weird case. Probably, I think without the off-field stuff that was still lingering with him this offseason, legal stuff, probably is a 4th round, 5th round.
4th or 5th, yeah.
Caliber player. So you add that as an undrafted free agent. You also have the Broncos finding Palczewski and Parrott. So you have bodies there. I don't know if it's necessarily, other than Webb, I think, guys who can develop into potential B+ or B level starters. Maybe Forsyth, although the pass protection stuff I'm not sure is there completely for him, but he's definitely in line to be the starter on the unit going forward after this season if they let Wattenberg walk, which I expect them to do. And there's been other teams that have more heavily invested in the offensive line. I mean, the Eagles obviously just keep investing in there. I think the Steelers have really invested in that unit as well. And it's an area, it's hard to invest in the offensive line because it's not a rotational position, right? So it's like, okay, we're putting a guy in there and he's not going to see any snaps, ideally. That's hard to make a pitch for that, so I get it. But it does seem like the Broncos just have more questions there. And one of the reasons they have more questions there is because they've been so healthy on that unit as well. So if they missed a guy for a full season let's say it was, knock on wood again, but let's say Wattenberg out for the entire year and you toss in Forsyth and he gets better and shows that he can be that guy. Okay, well, now we know. But because it's a double catch-22. We don't know because they've been healthy. So if they're not healthy, what does that look like? You hope for the best. You hope the coaching staff and the overall system can protect them. I don't know if any of them, though, are the chance to develop into quality starter types.
Yeah, and that's the risk. I mean, Forsyth, he looked decent enough as a run blocker last year when Wattenberg missed that time, but as a pass blocker, as you mentioned, it left a lot to be desired. That's the biggest area where he's got to show growth there. And then you have the whole fact of talking about center specifically, Luke Wattenberg. Don't expect him to be re-signed just because of the finances on the interior offensive line in general. I mean, you have 4 guys that you paid big money to, and you're going to go pay a 5th one. Hey, Sean Payton could do it because of how much he does value that starting unit, but I'm not sure Wattenberg is that type of player. So I think that they're really looking for Forsyth or Webb or Gargiulo to step in and really show that they can be the long-term center so they can sit there and make that adjustment. Palczewski, he looked fine at tackle last year when coming in for Mike McGlinchey. As you said, he lost slowly. So that's a good thing. But from conversations I've had, they seem to prefer him at guard, kind of like you do. That just seems to be a thing. Sean Payton just has a view on tackles where he likes to have a guy be that backup left tackle and then a backup right tackle that can slide inside. So Matt Peart, he is that backup left tackle. That's what they're teaching him and training him to be more than anything. And in certain situations, he can slide over and play right tackle. And then Palczewski is that backup right tackle that can move inside. They just prefer him inside, which that's why Xavier Truss, I have eyes on him throughout this process because he can also be that one. And I think that they're a slim chance, but a chance that Truss can make the roster over Palczewski because he has more of that body type to be a tackle. But again, it's got a lot of time between now and then, and Truss has to overcome the fact that Palczewski's actually seen the field during the regular season. So it's a weird situation with the Broncos, as you said. You don't really want to see these guys because you don't want the starters to get hurt, but you also need to see these guys. You need to see what they can do. And in the preseason, they may not get that opportunity. Some of them might be, get some reps with the first team, but most of them won't because a lot of these guys, they want to see them go and improve. I think you'll see Ben Powers, Luke Wattenberg, and maybe Mike McGlinchey getting reps with the first team. Bulls, I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot. Same with Miners because they're well known. So the depth, it's not that I don't want to say it's actually that they have bad depth, it's they have unknown depth compared to some other teams who they went out and invested and brought in some guys who a little bit more because they've seen the field a little bit more, and those are the guys being the depth. So you have a little bit more answers to them compared to the Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back here, good to see Kaylee on. Hope you're doing well. So you got Frank Crum out there, the Troy calling him out. You mentioned Nick Gargiulo. Gargiulo. Nailed it. Those guys who roll in Bo Nix's crew. So when he's going around, it's always Frank Crum and Gargiulo. So always interesting to see. And I think the Broncos got a good thing with Zach Strief as the offensive line coach as well. So we'll find out. It definitely is set up for that to be the area they invest, though, next season. As we talked about 2 weeks ago. My bounce back candidate, I think it's kind of a cheat here to this one, but it's more about the opportunity you talked about. I'm going to disagree a little bit with you. While Hufanga, Greenlaw should be out there for 100% of the snaps, just with where the ball can go and just how starving the Broncos are for this. I don't think there's a lot of competition. I'm going to go Evan Ingram. I know is he like cheating because it's like the shoulder surgery comeback. So I bounce back. He was still okay last season with everything. But I'm going to throw out Evan Ingram as my bounce back candidate. Now, what's his role actually going to be? Is he going to get like any inline work this season, or is he just going to be more of the big slot? And like, how many snaps can he actually get if you're never going to see him even as like an attached F? Like, forget the Y stuff, even as an attached F, like how much opportunity and snaps are there? But I think that he's definitely somebody who's going to have a chance. You got Bo Nix jump another season, wanting to work the middle of the field. Sean Payton, I mean, they really attacked him this offseason. So I'm going to go with Ingram just because I think there's a higher floor because he's going to get schemed touches where Hufanga, with his injury history and how much like turnovers play a big factor for him and how volatile those can be, I think that's more of a riskier bet compared to Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Ingram, he makes sense as well because, 4 games with the hamstring injury to start the season, 4 games to close out the season because of the torn labrum. But with Hufanga, where you can see where his impact is going to be, you can do the same thing with Evan Ingram. You know how he's going to be used. He is going to see time as an inline tight end. I doubt many of it's going to be on obvious running downs. You're going to see him as an attached F. You're going to see him in all sorts of things with the offense in passing downs. I would say I question how much he's going to see on running downs, as a run blocker, how many snaps he sees there. I think that would be a better way to put it because I think most of the time if we see him as a run blocker, it's going to come out of the slot. So that's just because of his skill set there, but he is a guy that they brought in to help them on third down, to help them in certain situations, specifically to be that second go-to guy for Bo Nix to as an offer of somebody besides just Cortland Sutton. Because there were times last year where you saw it that Bo Nix basically had to force a ball to Cortland Sutton because there wasn't a reliable other option. Devon Vele had his issues, Troy Franklin had his issues, Marvin Mims had his issues with how they were used, with what they were able to show on the field, with the route running, whatever it was. They all had those issues. So Evan Ingram gives him that other veteran, reliable option for it. And so, yeah, he's definitely a comeback candidate. And he's another one it's easy to see why, because again, it's easy to see how his usage is going to come on the offense.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that stands out to you as we wrap up the show? We got Leroy also saying good morning. Looking forward to training camp with pads on to see what we have. Hope we be more balanced on offense this year and be more patient in the run game. I want to see Payton be a little more creative with play calling. I think they were plenty creative last season, and a lot of the metrics would indicate they had the infrastructure in place, just the running backs didn't totally take advantage of it, and the combination of not having weapons to create space with a quarterback who is progressing, ascending. So those kind of lead to running issues, but not really much of an excuse this season. We got Gatorade Gaming. It kind of scares me with eggs in our basket and Ingram basket. Didn't have a ton of success with Trevor Lawrence. I think some of that is also the offensive play calling and infrastructure out there. He had like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he had a lot of pretty good statistics for a tight end. The caveat being for a tight end, but last season the wheels kind of fell off. So we are putting a lot of eggs in it. I think we need to be realistic of what a good tight end output looks like this season for him. Like if he goes for 750 yards and 7 touchdowns, like that's a top 12 tight end, top 10 tight end. That's probably good enough for me for him next season. But top 3 tight end, revolutionizing the offense. I don't know about that. I don't know if he's versatile enough, old enough, athletic enough anymore to be that guy. But no, he can definitely be a key cog considering where the Broncos tight ends were last season.
Yeah, I mean, Gatorade, appreciate you jumping in, but I'm going to push back a little bit. He had a lot of success with Trevor Lawrence. In 3 years with him, he caught almost about 250 passes for over 2,100 yards, give or take, and 10 touchdowns. That's a lot of success, especially when you factor in the fact that he missed 8 games last season alone. He's coming off 2 years. 2023 was his best year of his career, where he put up over 900, almost 1,000 yards receiving on 114 catches, 4 touchdowns, which is 1 less than 2022. But he had a lot of success with Evan Ingram. The issue with Trevor Lawrence, the issue has been staying available. And so I think that, play calling was an issue there in Jacksonville, especially with some of the coaching issues that they've had over the last few years. But he had a lot of success. He definitely helped when he was available. That offense did look different compared to when he was out last season, especially. So I think that he is definitely a guy, again, who makes sense to have a breakout candidate, especially when you pair him with Sean Payton, who has shown time and time again that he knows how to scheme up and call plays to benefit his players to the max, that really he knows how to use them to get the most out of them. As for another guy that I think could be, I mean, obviously, Dwayne Greenlaw, there's a conversation there, but bounce back to me suggests that they've had a good year in the NFL, right? So I'm not going to sit there, and I saw Jeremy, he mentioned Audric Estime, Troy Franklin. Bounce back to me isn't a second-year player who just struggled to see the field consistently. It's a guy who has had success at the NFL level that may have fallen off for a year or two because of injury or whatever. So Alex Singleton, I don't think he is going to be the candidate because I don't think he's going to be there, but he's about the only other one that comes to mind as a possibility behind the 3 additions that Denver has made. But to me, it's Hufanga or Ingram, one of the two as the candidate. And then Dre Greenlaw is a third option.
Yeah, all good candidates, without a doubt. I mean, I keep circling back around who can be a bounce back on this team. I mean, everybody played pretty over their head last season. Not over their head. That makes it sound like, that's going to regress. But like nobody really was, compared to expectation, lower output. The one I want to ask as far as bounce back, Riley Moss, considering how he closed down the stretch last season, that he's the only one I can think like maybe you could make an argument for on the unit. But other than that, I feel like everybody's pretty pretty consistent on that front and played well last season.
Yeah.
So that's the only other one I could come into and thinking maybe Jaleel McLaughlin or not Jaleel McLaughlin. McMillan shocks everyone and has a bounce back, and what does that look like for him? But those are the ones that I stand out to, like who kind of was down compared to expectation last season. Moss the last after his injury, and then McMillan just in general.
Yeah, again, it just goes back to how I define bounce back. It's a guy who's had a good year to it.
Yep.
Riley Moss, he had a great 8 to 10 games before he got hurt to start the season. McMillan, he had a pretty solid start to the season, but neither one of them had that great year in the NFL, full year before, whatever happened to it. So Moss, I can understand the thinking because he did have that injury and then had that terrible game against the Bengals when he was rushed back from his injury. But again, just how I define bounce back, neither one of them really fit. I did debate Riley Moss in my head, though, while you were talking, and then it just came back to how do I define bounce back?
Yeah. Nope, you're absolutely right. Well, guys, we're going to wrap it on up. Appreciate everybody coming in today. Happy Monday. Happy Pride Month. Happy Military Appreciation Month closing out there in May as well. So hopefully everyone has a good one, staying healthy. Appreciate all the comments and the super chats coming in here today. Michael Ronquillo, of course, Troy coming in. Michael, again, great show today. Nick and Eric on Broncos for Breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Go everybody. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Broncos for Breakfast, like I said, follow us at Mile High Huddle. Follow us. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Eric's at Erick Trickel. We're also over at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says there underneath, number one way you can catch us, and make sure you catch us when we go live, subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Fun show today. Still got in, 40 minutes. So it's the dead season. We got plenty to talk about. Like I said earlier, if you guys have any dying questions or topics you want us to dig into, hit us up on Twitter. Just hit us up on Twitter in general. Hang out, talk ball. I mean, I'm starting to get ready for working through some 2026 guys in the NFL draft. It's going to be I think it's going to be an offensive line focused view for me, a list of guys. I wish we had more wide receiver options. Right now, it doesn't look like the best wide receiver class, but you never know. Things can change without a doubt. But Eric, final thoughts here. Good work on covering all the PFF stuff here. I think you wrote up the article at Mile High Huddle about Talanoa Hufanga being the bounce back candidate. So shout out to you for all the work that you're doing. And Gator game, is that a Broncos hat head behind you? No, it's just a foam Broncos shape. Shout out to Noel Kappa, who sent that to me about 7 years ago, and I've jumped. So perfect. I'll have that behind me in the show. So not a Broncos head cutout. I wish. That's fun, but all good still. But any final thoughts, Eric?
No, I mean, Pro Football Focus is very anchoring right now because they're doing their position rankings. I'm waiting for corner and safety to come out so I can write those up. But after reading the defensive line and even the edge rankings, I'm rather infuriated with Pro Football Focus, which, hey, if you guys know my history a little bit and heard me talk about Pro Football Focus, I don't have always the nicest things to say about them, but it's been, as you said, it's a dead time, so we got to look for what we can to cover, and hey, rankings, that's always a good thing to cover. But hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hope we were able to start off your week really well. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, and we will see you on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, appreciate everyone. Have a good one. We'll see you again Wednesday. Have a great week. Hopefully it's good for you guys. Missed you last week. Choose kindness, compassion. Go Broncos.